Testing, testing. It's working. Hello to my enormous audience. Thank you for staying to the end. They say they keep the best for last. That's a bit scary. So I'm Stuart. I'm from Comnoco. My friends know me as a recovering petrol head. You can ask me later what that means if you want. And I am here to talk to you about how you build an app that scales to millions. So how do you build an app that scales to millions? Well, it's a multiple choice question. And to make it easy, here are a couple of the options. Is it A or B? You all hear about B. Just go ahead, build the app, and then hope it works. And if it doesn't, rely on the funding to kick in to sort it all out. But that's not really how it goes for most. So this talk today is about giving you a way to build so that you don't hit that obstacle. So I don't know how many of you have built anything to scale to millions, but hopefully you'll want to make sure what you build is able to scale. So here's a typical tech stack used by developers. Hidden under here is a database. And the database layer, I think we're all familiar with, is where you put things in and you pull things out, basically, and it looks after them for you. And then at the top, you've got the visual layer, which, again, I think you're very familiar with. We all use it every day on our devices, on our browsers. It's the bit you interact with. And it can have an amount of logic as part of it as well. And then in the middle, you've got your logic and integrations layer. And that's where you can get your data. So this stack is about where you store and access data, how you connect and integrate, and where you apply your business logic and compute power, basically. And as a no-coder, it's so easy to get started building stuff. With some of the tools you use, you might not know whether you're using a front end or a back end. You're just applying some logic, and no-code kind of hides that from you. So when you start out, you might miss one really critical question, which is, where should I build my logic and integration layer? And for no-coders starting out, often they start with automation tools, and they're really great for simple things. They're really good. Or often no-coders will build logic, again, in these all-in-one systems, and they won't know quite what they're applying and why and how. Either way, you kind of end up with this black box automation where there are pre-built connectors, and you end up with little low-level control over what you're doing. So as your system grows, that gets a bit tricky. And they are so easy. These black box automations are super easy, but they do limit that data and the granularity you have access to, as well as your deployment and scalability options. So it might meet your requirements when you're starting out, but as you grow, and you've got long-term survival, being able to give your customers exactly what they want or massage your business processes to exactly what they need to be, you might get a bit stuck. So here's an example of that black box connectivity. Maybe you've got a SaaS and you're trying to pull out data about transaction that happened. So down here, number one, you've got a connector to that SaaS that retrieves the data, and then it goes through another connector. And by the time it gets to you, you've got what you're given. And if you want to build logic on top of that, or if you want to change what's come to you, you might be a bit stuck. There's a lack of granularity even before you start building your logic, really. So you end up with something that looks a bit like this. It's generic. You're stuck with the same processes and options for how you do things as your competitors. Same automations. And before you know it, You might have something that's working, but it's probably working like that, which is really hard to maintain, really hard to scale, really hard to understand, really hard to customize. So you probably start thinking, uh-oh, I need to rebuild, I need to do something here. And to get that granularity and control, I need to build my own APIs, I need to build my own functions. And you need to somehow do that in a secure and scalable way. So I don't know whether any of you have reached that point where you've patched together these automations and then you've realized that you need to move to the next level. So you've got to think about it. And when you start thinking about it, it really matters how you choose your architecture. We've talked about limiting your customization options and your processes being the same as any competitor, but I want to now dig into how creating your process in the right place is going to save you time and money. So why do you need a backend tool? Well, when you create your own business processes in a secure backend tool, you end up with a hub, a central hub where you've got all of your business logic. And it's critical when you want to scale up. So yes, it means you can create more customized features, but it means you can also change your logic and build and change your logic without disrupting the user experience on the front end. And you can keep your personal data away from the browser, exposure in the browser. You can securely connect to other systems because you can keep those API keys and the credentials away from the browser. You can work with more than one front-end application, all served by your central logic. So you can have everything coming from one central point. So the result you get is flexibility hidden behind here. And it's going to be essential in the long run if your project is going to be successful. So why would you want to keep your integration and logic in a separate layer from your database? We've covered the reasons for keeping your logic and integrations in a tool that's separate from your front end, but let's dig down into this a bit more now. So it means you can build with one database or any number of databases all at the same time, and it means your data is not locked into the platform where you're writing your logic. You can work with current databases in your business without having to mirror the data into some central point to be able to use it. And best of all, if you want to, you can build with a database like Supabase and happily scale to millions. And why is this important? It's important because at some point you'll probably want to change the database. You'll have reasons to do that. You might start small, but at some point you'll need a database that handles a higher volume of customers or products, or a higher volume of requests and load going through it, transactions. And you might need multiple copies of your database, so you've got high availability if one goes down, another's available, and it's automatically there. You might want one where you're only charged for the volume of data that you store, or one that works with any current and future front-end application, back-end programming, whether it's code or no code. By having it separate, you end up with that freedom. You might need something that backs up frequently enough to suit your business requirements, point in time to the second backups instead of daily backups, whatever it might be. Or compliance, obviously, one that meets HIPAA or SOC 2 or GDPR. You just might want to keep all your data in one central point that's separate from the rest of your stack. So here is separated stack, and this brings us back to the slide earlier where you've had your database and your integration and logic layer and your front end. And here you've got these buckets at the bottom. They represent your databases, and hopefully the bigger they are, the more money you're making, the more data you've got. And then at the top, you've got various apps you're serving, various front ends, and they're all served by your single point of your integration and logic layer. And really, it's this layer, your backend, that contains your secret sauce for your business. And it enables you to do whatever you want with your data, get data from anywhere, combine it, control it, do exactly what you need. So going back to the original question, the answer is A. Use a separate stack and get that flexibility you need so that you can scale to millions and not worry about it. So thinking about this, to do that, you need to program in a no-code backend. And being able to program makes you be able to shape that underlying logic that governs precisely what you need for your business processes and for your customers. So instead of choosing from this menu of pre-built connectors, you can do exactly what you need for your business. So you can connect and integrate with anything, make granular queries to any database, you can transform the data how you want, you can consolidate it in any way, and you can format it and output it in any way. And you might ask, what does this mean for my business? So you can basically create your own full SaaS platform because you're programming, you're building your own platform, you're not just choosing these little bits of functionality that others give you. That targets, again, your customers and consumers individually and gives you more efficient back-end processes. So, for example, you create the back-end to an e-commerce program that takes a platform that accesses data from personal accounts, combines that with transaction details from an ERP system that you have, purchase information, serve add-ons from third-party APIs, and offer logistics and delivery options, again, from other APIs. And you pull this all together in your one back-end and program that. And there's no limit to the business logic. There's no black boxes. So basically, the more complex your business logic, the more you can tailor your responses and your products and services to the individuals and make it your business and exactly how you need. So you know what, this is my chance to tell you about Comnoco. First of all, I just want to note, have any of you had any of these problems we're talking about? Does it sound familiar to you? That's good. That's good. So Comnoco, we've built for this very purpose. It's a no-code tool. It's a visual programming language that allows no-coders to move beyond automation into real programming in a secure and scalable back-end that can work with any front-end and any database. It's ready to handle greater complexity, bigger scale, and give you what you want. And it is really built from the ground up to allow you to scale. Your processes get run as serverless functions, which basically means for you, you don't have to worry about, you don't have to go, I need to choose a box that's this size with this many CPUs. You don't need to do that. You just press publish on your processes you've created, and if you demand them 1,000 times in a second or 1 time in a second, the system just works and runs them for you. So no need to panic as you reach the limit, or no need to over-provision because you think you might have a peak at the end of the month that you might need to cover. And there's zero tech stress for you. There's no servers, no security, no DevOps headache. Just write your business logic and publish it. And it's also highly available. So you don't need to worry about that as well. You're not running on one box you've bought. You're running on multiple boxes that we maintain that are always there. If one's not available, there'll be another one for you, and you won't have to worry about that. And of course, it's more eco as well because there's not a box provisioned for you, sat idle. This is more of a shared architecture. And it can be installed and run on everything from a single machine through to an on-premise large deployment for enterprise customers. And what does it look like? Well, here's a sneak peek. So with Comnoco, you can create logic with the sort of equivalent complexity to code. You can break it down into reusable little functions, so you can write something and then use it 100,000 times else, call it. And the business processes created by these automated sequences can become the backbone to your business process and be reused with any front-end application or any database. And its user interface is built to give you really clear oversight of large processes with a myriad of pathways. You can obviously also create your own APIs in minutes. You just write the function and expose it. And we create the API. We create the open API specification or Swagger specification so other systems can interpret it and connect to it. It's just super simple and very, very fast. And then, as I said, it scales and you get full visibility of that. You can see the throughput on each of your endpoints you've created. You can drill down into the logs and search the logs and see what's happened for each run. And everything is stored super securely and encrypted, but actually we don't store your data. That's in your database, so you can still be compliant. We just provide that processing layer for you. And then because it connects to any database or any front-end system, you're not locked in. You have that choice of where you can store your data, and you can get it critically from just multiple systems, your existing business systems, your new business systems. It works with everything. And of course, you do need a database. And if you are starting out on a no-code project, we highly recommend Supabase. It's an epic and powerful hosted database platform. It's got a spreadsheet-like interface to set up your tables and your data. And it's got this power to support you as you grow, scaling endlessly. But it is kind of targeted at developers. So that's why we've got your back. That's why we've written Comnoco. It brings that no-code layer to what was more the preserve of developers in the past. So it brings you the freedom to bring your own ideas to life by building the functions you want from scratch and scale to millions. But it doesn't quite stop there. You could just build APIs. You could sell access to APIs. Maybe your product didn't go as you hoped, but you've still got some great process on the back end. Sell that access to the APIs you've created on Comnoco. Or perhaps you need to send communications to your customers. You need to generate invoices. You need to generate itineraries for the travel company. You need to make them hyper-personalized. You need to make sure that everything changes depending on the data, depending on the APIs you've called, the weather forecast for where you're traveling to, as it might be. You can do this with Comnoco. You can create beautiful, personalized emails as well that work on any device. And this is all through the power of this no-code programming. So, thank you very much for listening. No one is asleep. Oh, maybe one. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I'd like to open it up to any questions anyone may have. And I hope it's been interesting and useful. Sure. Yes.
Hi. How does it differ from something like Zano? What's the key differences here?
The key differences to Zano. There might be people in this room better placed to answer that. We are in a similar space, that is for sure. But our philosophy of just being like a programming language, where we are just that logic layer, makes us a little bit different. And obviously our interface is very different. But by being just that logic layer, we encourage you to work with any data source, any existing data source, and multiple data sources at the same time. And we're built to work with that internally and display it to you as a user or a developer on Comnoco in a really easy way. So it's just a slightly different mindset on that. And then we also have that focus on the communications as well. So the PDF generation and and the stuff. And then finally, just the way you scale on Comnoco is just a different model to Xano. So horses for courses. Any more questions?
Thank you for the presentation. Which database are integrated with Comnoco except Supabase?
Mm-hmm. So at the moment we have Oracle, MySQL, Microsoft SQL Server, and Postgres. But we can actually add, that's just what our customers want at the moment. We can add any other SQL database quite quickly for you if you have a requirement for anything else. But those tend to cover the enterprise scenario for what databases. So for example, if you've got an ERP system, a PeopleSoft system, you've got the Oracle connectivity, that sort of thing. Do you have one in mind that you need?
Just want to know the list.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. First of all, I apologize because I came late.
Oh, don't worry. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. It seems like Comnoco is kind of an entirely different category of no-code software that you call logic, because we are used to having the front end and the back end, or both, in Bubble, for instance. And it's the first time that I hear anyone talking about kind of the logic category. Is it a new category, or would you say make, for instance, is in the logic category, or is it something entirely different?
Yes, I would say that. I don't know at what point you joined us, but earlier in the presentation I talked about systems like Make, which are the automation systems, and they give you that black box connectivity, and that's definitely a logic layer because they don't do the data store. Well, they have a little bit of data store, but generally they're about connecting systems together, but in a predefined way. You don't get the granularity, and you're not building your own app, really. You're just using an automation through their system. So yes, it is a similar space. A logic layer is definitely not new, because that's what programming languages are. Programming languages don't have databases built in. They're designed for you to write your logic that talks to the databases. And we're trying to bring that concept to the no-code world to offer more flexibility to choose best-of-breed solutions. So you don't have to choose your all-in-one. You can get all the best-of-breed, and you don't have to change everything all in one. If you decide to change something, you can keep all that logic that you've written and just change your front end, or just change your database. It gives you that freedom. So thanks for the question. Yeah.
As a result, I have another question.
Great.
Maybe again it's because I came in late. He was asking for a list of back ends, and how do you connect to front ends, and what kind of front ends is it through an API? Like, okay.
Yeah. So API connectivity. So you can create APIs in Comnoco that take the information in you want to give Comnoco, give the information back you want to give. So that way you can serve any front end, because they all call REST APIs essentially. So any front end that will call the REST API can talk to Comnoco.
Thank you for the presentation. So if you are talking about consuming APIs, could I also consume a Airtable database via its API?
Thank you for the question. Yes, you can. So you can use Airtable's API to work with data in the same way that you would work with data from a SQL database. It all comes into Comnoco, we display it visually, it becomes typed, so you can't make mistakes, you can't try and do number things with text and text things with numbers, and we help you build and make sure that we offer you the right building blocks at the right point to do what you need to do. So very much so, yes, it will work with Airtable. Yeah. And we also have the ability to import open API or Swagger specifications. So if you want to work with a system that publishes their API documentation that way, which is most APIs, it's a one-click import with Comnoco, and then we build a reusable function that calls each endpoint that you can just use as if it were a building block that we'd written ourselves. in Comnoco. Any more questions? No one got a good joke? I don't think I do. Well, thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it. It's lovely to have an audience for my first ever talk. So thank you.